Hello, I'm Julia Cordova. Thank you so much for subscribing to my YouTube channel and liking my videos. I really appreciate it. I took last week off, which was really hard to do because I have an obsessive personality, probably like a lot of us do who trade. But I'm glad I did, because now I feel like I have a fresh head and I can start to look at things again. And so I think it's important to every once in a while take a break. But I did want to talk about something before I start, and that is I looked at Twitter very quickly while I was on vacation. I saw a lot of people talking about low volume. Oh, you can't trust low volume, you know, look how long we've been going up. Actually, it's the exact opposite. And I wanted to talk about this because when I was first new to trading, I used to hear, oh, that's low volume, and think that that was a bad thing. No, low volume during a trend is actually a very good thing. It's when you're in the middle or close to the top of a trend that you see high volume that you should be very worried, right? Because that's when a lot of people who know things are getting the F out. So low volume doesn't necessarily mean anything bad, and I just wanted to put that out there because, like, I saw a lot of people, oh, I don't trust this, it's low volume. It's still going up. It's still going in the direction. So it's just when you see flashes of high volume, that's when to be in the middle of a trend or during a trend, that you should start to be concerned that potentially we are close to an inflection point. Not necessarily at the top or the bottom, but high volume is where it's at in terms of detecting, early detection of inflection points. Okay, that's it. All right, let's talk charts. Ready? Whoop, I almost put my eye out. I'm not used to that. Okay, let's start off by looking at ES or SPX weekly futures. Okay, so what were y'all doing last week? Try to represent me every once in a while. No, y'all are just continuing the trend up. We still have not gotten, however, to my target from breaking out of this channel of 43.80. By the way, I did change a slope here. Don't be weird about it. I just did it because I think it'll be better for us in the long run. Okay, doesn't matter. Not your concern. I just wanted to point that out. Anyway, 43.80 would be, I think, near-term resistance from a weekly perspective. However, also from a weekly perspective, this chart is not going to start looking bearish longer term until we close below this 4 to 11 area or so. Then it's going to start to look a little like, ruh-roh, is this a trend change? Doesn't mean it can't pull back, but a close below 4211 would have me, from here at least, it could change, but it would have me start to be a little bit like longer term bearish and not just looking for a pullback. So, and same thing with this sort of this finish line that was at 41.83. That is sort of like, this is start looking to buy the dip if you are so inclined. But start to get a little worried. But this below this 41.83, I think that would be definitively, unless it starts to flag. We can look at that when it comes to. But anyway, those are the two values I'm watching from here. We're sort of in the middle here. We're above we got above resistance for now, and back testing it just a little bit in this little bit of futures that have been open, but nothing, no big whoop. Okay, let's look at daily. All right, same thing here. It's just been going up. By the way, another thing that a lot of people are talking about, well, it's X number of green days in a row. What are the odds that the next day will be a green day? Babe, how long have you been doing this? Like, the odds are always, the odds in fact are higher, like in a way, okay? If you ever see somebody talking about, well, it's been X number of days in a row and that hasn't happened since what? Unfollow their ass. They don't know. No. In my opinion, I don't know either. It's all just opinions anyway. And I could be wrong. They could be wrong. We could be wrong. But anyway, as a short-term daily resistance, I've got 43.56 as a measured move from this breakout. Okay, so I will start to look there to be, unless we see something on the smaller time frames, it may not hit here. It's possible it won't. Because it's, you know, we've had this for a while, right? But if it does hit here, I think that will be the time where I'll start to really sink my teeth into some potential short swings, at least just for a dip. Not necessarily a crash, but a dip. Just a summer lull, if you will. And a back test of this channel, 42.24 or so, will start to look if you're so inclined to buy, that would start to look good there and then up. Okay, now let's look at NASDAQ weekly. Okay, so remember that I had drawn this line in as an early detection system of when we get above, then it'll start to go whoop, and it did. Oh boy, did it ever. And it happened to correspond with my Uncle Rico video too, which was so weird. Wasn't weird? Some people know what they're talking about. Anywho, I drew one in again today, and you'd be like, well, I could see why somebody would, oh, why would you do that, Julia? We haven't even had any, because when I drew this in here, we'd had a couple of red weeks. Here's why I did that, because I tend to reuse these slopes over and over again. So from my perspective, if it's going to continue on doing this insane thing of going up, like it's been doing, then here at 14,669, potentially might be a good place to buy. Yeah, okay? Or if it gets below 14,669 and it starts to look on the smaller time frames like it might head there. You remember smaller time frames are like, they switch first, right? No trend change starts on a yearly chart. They start on the second, minute, hour, and so forth. So if we start to see, but we look at the big picture first so that we make sure we don't F ourselves in our big trades. Anyway, if we see it start to close below 14,669 and start to get near that area and then smaller time frames, it looks like it might stay below that area. That would be a good place to short, okay? So 14,669 would be sort of the, in my opinion, key pivot for this week, and potentially we could get all the way or beyond 15,209 because that's our measured move that we have not yet hit. And then from a back test perspective, that would be 14,066, right? So it can fall 700-ish points from here and still be a back test. Wow. Wow. It's possible. All right, now let's look at daily. Okay, so just from a daily perspective, I don't, because I've been off and not really just charting actively, I don't have a lot of resistance here until 14,842. It may not get there, as it didn't get to it previously. But that is the next resistance I have marked off. And then from a support perspective, depending on when it hits, this would be Wednesday-ish, I think, 14,322. That would require a lot though, right? But from, I mean, I don't have a lot intelligent to say about it at this time, other than that would be the next resistance I have on the larger time frame, and that would be the next support on the larger time frame of a day. So I'm gonna have to draw some lines in here. You know what? I don't have any lines. If you look at this chart, I don't have any down lines, right? Every single, look at all these huge lines. And by the way, don't make fun of my lines, because I see people on Twitter with like 12 plus pivots with no directionality talking, and like everybody likes their stuff. It's like, he gave you 15 pivots. One of them is gonna hit. What are y'all talking about? I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, so now let's look at Bitcoin. I want to talk about something I didn't talk about before, which is a lot of people ask me why I didn't think this was head and shoulders. Because this was, now I'm very literal, and you'll see 20,000 different definitions of head and shoulders. Some include volume, some include the height of the shoulders, some include the width of the shoulders and the head, I mean, whatever. Mine is just anatomically looking at it the very same way that somebody will look at a picture on a wall and be able to tell you if it's slanted or not. That's how I do my head and shoulders. I don't like dip into the technical. I do in terms of like targets and stuff, but in terms of whether or not it's a head and shoulders, I just look at it. And to myself, I say, does this look like a person's tiny, teeny, tiny ass shoulder and a big ass, huge, garbage, Oscar the Grouch size head, and then another little teeny bitty shoulder? Nope, that's not a head and shoulders. And look, it's definitely not, right? First of all, we haven't had a close below this neckline. It's not when it goes below the neckline, it's a close below. So we haven't had a close below what I would assume would be people's neckline. I don't know where the neckline is of this because it's not a head and shoulders, but it's in the shape of a head and shoulders. And the longer that it continues on without having a dump here or a pop, the more likely it is, in my perspective, to go down and not up. Okay, and I'll talk about this when I talk about Joe, because Joe is actually something very similar but upside down. Anyway, it's not a head and shoulders. It may go down, but it's not a head and shoulders from my perspective. And typically, by the way, also, when you're talking about something like Bitcoin and everybody and their brother talks about something, that's when they screw the most amount of people by making it not the thing that they talked about, boring people out of the trade. But again, too, from a bull perspective, usually at these dips, they do not give every single person and their brother an opportunity to get in before going up. That's because when you hear at the 7-Eleven or at the doctor's office that you should buy Doge, or I'm not sure how to say it, Doge, whatever, you should buy Dogecoin, or you could buy Bitcoin. When you start hearing it there, and then you start giving everybody an opportunity to get in and around the same price, typically speaking, that is bearish. Not always. Don't at me. And if you were to draw a box here, I would tell you that I'm not a box trader, but a close above about 40,627 or so would be very bullish. A box here, that a close below 31,499 would be bearish. That's what I do when I'm outside of, when it's just doing nothing. This is a very technical term for nothing, all right? Just look at the highs and the lows and it looks for a close, and then that's the meat of the trade if you're not already in a position. Okay, now let's look at Ethereum. Okay, so we had this in sort of as a, you know, another pivot point here from this previous dip, and it, so far we have a higher low here and then it's gone up. But from here, I would say if it closes below 22.14 or so, and it's right at 22.23 or so, then that would be, I think, short-term bearish. If it closes above 22.75 or so, that would be short-term bullish. That would start to make this look like it's a fakey breaky. Now you could look at this line and go, Julia, what the heck are you talking about? This looks like a this line looks like butt, because it's not held very well, and it looks like a dimpled butt because it keeps going in and out. Well, yep, sometimes that happens. Sometimes these slopes are not as good as other times, but what that really means is we can just use it as a pivot for short-term trades. And so probably what will happen, in my best guess, is it'll just chop here and do neither one of these things, make me look bad. Okay, now let's look at GDX. Okay, I sincerely hope that I did not miss this beautiful week to buy. But I'm not sure that I did, because typically speaking, when something looks this beautiful as it did here when we bought it, it will typically test the resolve of the people who bought it by, if not within the next week or so, within the next few weeks, coming down and getting right up in the business of this low, if not a little bit lower. So it's starting to look like it has potential to bounce, but we have to wait to see whether this is a real bounce. If it closes above this 20 MA, which right now is about 35, 34 or so, okay? Closes above there, it's got some potential to really bounce. Otherwise, it might come here, consolidate, and then come back down again and give us a real opportunity to buy, like it did for these people here. And it really does screw people, because if you bought anywhere in here, you start getting real paranoid when it gets here, and you sell when you should be adding to it because it's a back test, right? So it just does that. The market does that because the market is designed to screw people who try to time it. That's why it does things like that. All right, let's look at gold. Gold. Okay, so far during this short little week, we have gotten above this key area, which is 1788.9. But it does have some significant resistance here at 1801 area. So if it can close above 1801 area, I'm going to say that it can consolidate some more, but that is a bullish signal. However, you have this big down candle, and typically whenever you have a huge down candle like this, and I mean really big, it takes a little bit of time for it to sort itself out, right? If it doesn't bounce back right away, it takes some time. So here, it takes some time, okay? Just usually speaking. In this case, it bounced way the F back, pretty much though, within just a couple weeks. So that was a little more bullish looking than these little tiny candles are. But for now, it's just, from the bull's perspective, it's got to get back above this 1801 level and close above it for it to start to look less like a dead cat, okay? All right, let's look at silver. So silver, so far this week, is it's a red looking candle, but it's higher. It opened higher than this previous week's close. So the level to watch if you are a bull is 26.94. The bigger this candle is, the more likely that we'll cancel this big green out. Same thing as with gold, right? But from a level perspective, let me put this one down too. Okay, from a level perspective, 26.94, and I hope it doesn't go back down here though, right? Because it's already done this twice, but 25.93 would be an area for it to bounce if it got there. Okay, if it gets back down to 25.39 and starts to look like it's going to go below it, and that's not good short term. And I mean it's kind of duh, right? If it goes lower, that's not good. But what I mean is, if it closes lower like that, that would not be bueno. Close here would not be bueno. Okay, you want to see the bounce pretty much immediately. Let's look at oil. Okay, I made this smaller because this is where I got this next resistance. I drew this in just before the video, 76.9, because that was the previous high when people started talking about it. Oh, it's definitely going to 80. This is where it turned around before. Could this time be different? Sure, it can absolutely be different. But if it does start to show some resistance here, I've been expecting wrongly that it could potentially dip in the near term. Wrongly so far, at least, and that's pretty much wrong. Okay, anyway, it doesn't matter. Potentially people might start to talk about this, if it does start to dip, as a giant head and shoulders, right? Shoulder, head, and if it starts to go down, 65.65 will be a key pivot for it. However, if it does not, if it continues up, then I don't see a lot of, and you can see this pink area, the previous high, here, here, here. It was a chop area here. It does have a lot of resistance here. So if it breaks out and can hold above 76.9, it's probably going to 89. Not just 80. It's probably going to 90, actually. But 89.23 is the next resistance above that. So I may take a calculated short this week if it gets to 76.9. And we shall see. I will put a very tight stop on it there because, yeah, we still have some divergence here that can still get canceled out. But we'll have to see whether or not I see something there. Okay, now let's look at Natty. I have done super good in Natty this year. Oh my gosh. Because we bought it pretty much at this breakout, mid-twos-ish, mid-high twos. And we had endured some pain while it looked like it was breaking the F out, and then it came back and actually did get right below this gap area, pig gap area, and then it just went straight up. So the next resistance that I see, just, you know, and by the way, I could do the same thing here as I did for Natty in the opposite direction. See, look at that. That's why, look at that. So far, it has held that. So it's really good. I like doing that. But I'll probably delete this line later. Anyway, as long as it holds above 3.69 or so, it is bullish. Yeah, and it's bullish probably to the 4.04 to 4.07 area, at which time I would start to think about it going down to consolidate. All right, but especially you look for the last high as a resistance if it gets above that, you know. But this is a good area to buy, at least short-term scalping wise, on any kind of, during any kind of trend. It's a good area to buy or to look to be short when it gets below it, because you don't have to short the very top or buy the very bottom. Okay, let's look at Joe. All right, this is the same thing I was talking about in Bitcoin, but upside down. Shoulder, head. By the way, this is anatomically correct though. A good shoulder, a good sized head, a good sized shoulder. But is it a shoulder? No, it is not. This is not a head and shoulders, just like Bitcoin is not a head and shoulders. Didn't stop it from going up. Might not stop Bitcoin from going down. But it's not a head and shoulders. It's something that got a lot of people out of the trade during this diamond consolidation, and then up. So, from here, 42.82 is the pivot to watch this week. I would like it. Of course, it needs to close above it, but I would like it not to even get below it. That would be my dream. My dream would be for it to kind of kick back up here, back test it, and then that's it. But I don't like too many of these back tests on these lines. I like it to do what this did and get close, but no cigar, or else it's gonna do the thing, which I don't want it to do. But even any kind of consolidation, as long as it's above this big black line, is still bullish, right? Might start to look like a flag, but it's still bullish until it gets below this black line. Okay, that's it. Make myself big. Okay, well, anyway, thank you again so much for subscribing to my YouTube channel and liking my videos. I really appreciate it. I hope you had a wonderful week, and I hope you have a wonderful week. And I will see you on the interwebs. Okay, bye.